And we are live. So I'm here with good mate, the sexiest voice in Perth, as he's known, Gary Awesome. How are you, Gary?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good.
Good.
What's
so
been
this
happening?
is the not a great deal. I'm going to call this. I called it the 50,000 sub live. Better called the almost 50,000. I'm at 49,998 according to Social Blade, and actually,
I think that's good enough, mate. It's good enough.
And actually, I don't know, this happens to you. Dave Cullen tweeted this out the other day. He said, what's with to a new day? He lost like 60 subs at the start of the day. So 3 hours ago, I was at 49,998. And for some reason, 10 minutes later, I was back to 49,960. And it's taken the last 3 hours to get back up here again. So, you know, I know you've had some weird shenanigans with your sub count too, haven't you?
Oh yeah, that sort of goes on. Last week I had another jump again. You know, I jumped up 3,000, but then I lost like I got up in the morning. I'd lost something like 35 subs overnight or something after picking up over 200. It's like it's all made up. You know, like they go through, fix up their, I suppose, their bot things that they clean up and all of that.
Yeah.
But the 36 questions video sort of seemed to be on a playlist and getting a run again. I think that's how I jumped up a few grand. So
yeah,
that sort
happens.
of comes around every few months. And apart from that, I just sort of crawl up. But, you know.
Yeah. Oh, there I go. I'm 50,001 according to Social Blade. There we go. Might have to screen share that one. Get that over. Oh, there we go. Can we see that? Oh, what's happened? Did I lose everyone? Oh, look at that. Back down again. Are you there, Gaz? I can't hear. Can't hear you. Yo. Bueller? No. Seem to have lost the Gazman. He's gone. He's out. This is not looking good, people. I don't know what you're expecting. All right, I'm looking at the chat here now. Can anyone hear me? Or am I just whispering into the wilderness? What's going on? Anyone? Bueller? Yeah, Gaz has a tiny dick. Yeah, that's true. Oh, he's back, mate. Someone in a.
Was it me that dropped out? Was it?
I think so. Yeah, I'm getting. Yes, you're on. Yeah, you're live. Yeah. The regressive team took him out. Yeah. Fuck Trudeau. Well, that's a given. Fuck Trudeau. There's absolutely nothing you can say to counter that one. Talk about Hitler.
Sorry, mate. Just before we continue, can you send me the public link? Because I've just got the Hangout.
Oh yeah, righto. What do we got? There's I don't know, 65 people watching. I'll send it to you.
I'd like to get one of them. Here we go.
Yeah. 63. Oh, there's a couple of people are just not happy, dropping out already. So I've sent the link to Dave Cullen. He might show up later on. Not sure what he's got on.
Okay, now I can see the chat. It's all happening.
Oh, look. So, you know, I had an agenda, but of course, everybody in the chat has their own agenda, and they're saying, talk about the G20, talk about Hitler. Hitler was a Rothschild. Oh, that fucking idiot's in the chat. There's this guy in the chat. I don't know if he shows up on your channel, Gary. He's called Fishberry, and he thinks he's a conspiracy theorist. He thinks 9/11 was an inside job. He thinks that he believes in lizard people, and every stupid Alex Jones InfoWars conspiracy theory you've ever heard of. This guy believes it, and he comes on my channel like literally on a daily basis and just posts his latest stupid
conspiracy theory idea.
Oh, Christ. The guy is an absolute spastic.
Cool.
And maybe I don't know if he's a subscriber or what, but I encourage him. I say, please just keep posting it. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Well, you've got to have your, you've got to have your things to laugh at on your channel and that as well.
Yeah. So we had a few, so I'm sorry for the people who had their own agenda about what we should talk about. We've got a couple of articles lined up.
Well, I was going to basically, we could just quickly cover the Hitler and the G20 thing by just announcing it's okay, don't panic. Hitler wasn't there. So bang, we're right. We've dealt with it. Hitler wasn't there. Nothing to see here. Move on.
Isn't it a stunning sort of difference in the way that the violent leftists are treated? Could you imagine if that was a violent right-wing mob at the G20, smashing things, looting? You know, they were looting,
burning people's cars.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it'd be, it would literally be, oh, it's the march of Hitler. Hitler's back.
Yep.
It's all over. But no, these idiots march under the hammer and sickle. I think I heard Douglas Murray say something very interesting the other day. He said there are a lot of young people today, they don't know any other evil people from history except Hitler. You couldn't, if you ask them to name another one, they don't even know. Like they couldn't name Mao or Stalin or anyone like that.
They don't know anything about their hero Stalin.
No. And that's another point, isn't it? I think Jordan Peterson made the other day. He said he was making a joke about these people who showed up to one of his speeches with flags of the hammer and sickle, and the audience laughed. They laughed. They were
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and he said, I understand why you're laughing, but like you wouldn't be laughing if they'd shown up with SWAT sticker flags. And he said, the people with the hammer and sickle, I mean, they represent a movement that killed 100 million people in the 20th century. But for some reason, because, the postmodernists invaded the university, somehow the leftists got a pass on that one.
Oh, if they're carrying a communist flag or hammer and sickle, they may as well be carrying 2 to 3 swastikas. Yeah, because that's the equation, and with Russia, we'll just never know what went through the gulags because these people are just like completely forgotten and behind the Iron Curtain. At least with Hitler, they were able to throw some numbers around and get an estimation on what he did.
It's stunning the way we treat that. I think it's a mistake. I mean, that's what when I hear these people just talking about things like equality of outcome or safe schools or these are the people who would have been 80, 90 years ago. These are the people who would have been conducting the purges in Russia in the 20s and building the gulags. That's who they are. That's who they are. They're the modern day purge masters. Yeah. Well,
so you're going to be you're going to do the screen sharing and all of that. I take it there from your
Yeah. I hope that's not what fucked you up last time, because I've had some difficulties here on my end, but let's just try it once again with the screen sharing.
I think we'll all be good, mate.
So how does that looking?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yep.
Nice
Is
click.
it big enough?
Yeah, well, Mrs. Awesome says it is. Oh, you mean the article? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you say that to all the girls.
I'll get to that.
Shortage of eligible men has left women taking desperate steps to preserve their fertility. Experts say. That's always important to get in there. The experts say.
There's always some experts. Now, you'll probably hear what you'll hear here is the name of the expert, because it hasn't, they're not talking about something that experts completely fucked up. When it's something experts completely fucked up, it's just experts. I was talking about this in a video the other day. It's only when they're proposing the idea in the first place that you get the name of the expert. When it all fails and goes fucking pear-shaped, who knows?
Yep. So let's get down here. A dearth of marriageable men has left an oversupply of educated women taking desperate steps to preserve their fertility, experts say. The first global study into egg freezing found that shortages of eligible men were the prime reason why women had attempted to take matters into their own hands. Now, I have to take my hat off to the author here, because in the first two paragraphs, she has already removed any responsibility from women and placed it squarely onto men. So the fact that women,
all of a sudden those men aren't there. They're gone. They've been erased from the face of the planet. That's what I noticed about the assumption.
So and it's not educated women are not willing to marry down or institute the opposite of hypergamy. It's that there's a dearth of men. Basically, it's men's fault. Remember, when there's a problem for women, it's men's fault. And when there's a problem for men, it's also men's fault. That's called the patriarchy. That's how the patriarchy works.
Yes, the patriarchy. Dun, 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 dun.
So basically, and of course, it's always presented this way. You would have seen stories like recently, 1 in 4 women will never get married, which means 1 in 4 men will never get married, but that's not a problem. It's only a problem if women don't get married. It's not a problem.
Yeah. And one of the first things I notice about this is how that role reversal, so it was a problem because you weren't out making your own money and you made less than the man, and that was a problem, and gender pay gap, and we need to fix all of that up. But as soon as they are making more, the fact that men make less and women might have to marry down and look after their husbands the way husbands used to look after their wives, now it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem now. And here's the other thing as well I think we should get out of the way is, what does educated mean? Because, and tomorrow I'm going to put a video out about this, because what I've done is I've downloaded the spreadsheets of all the graduate degrees that were completed. I think the last year is 2014-15 in the US, and something like over 100,000 women got a graduate degree and something like 80-something thousand men. And at the end of, so obviously more women than men are getting degrees, but they split it out by categories. And so what you find is that women are doing way more education degrees. They're overrepresented in gender studies. They're overrepresented in communications degrees. Yep. And men are overrepresented in engineering, maths, So again, the idea that these women are sort of highly educated, as Milo Yiannopoulos said, like last year, he said one of his things that if you go into university and you're doing gender studies or ethnic studies or one of these types of courses, you're probably going to come out dumber than you went in.
Yeah, well, I mean, particularly with gender studies in any of the humanities, I mean, you'll probably end up with some sort of job, but it'll be in it sort of, teaching or, I mean, you're right. A lot of them are getting into journalism and stuff, and that's how they're getting to control the narrative, because they are doing communications. But yeah, unless they're doing like you said, engineering, trades, and because that's where the money is. That's what they need to be doing if they.
So, and I guess I could go further with this analysis. I don't know if I'll put in the video, but I could have a look at sort of what is the average pay of, say, a woman in social work, because that's another area that they dominate, as opposed to, say, a non-educated man who's an electrician. And you'll probably still find that those men are at least earning as much as those so-called educated women.
Yeah. I suppose it depends on how you, like you said before, how you measure education. See, to me, an electrician is an educated man. He's got a trade. He's learned all of these technical skills. He has to pass exams. There's all this safety stuff because he doesn't want to join himself to the grid potentially each day when he goes to work. They're educated in doing electrical things and fucking not killing themselves or other people.
Well, we started off this article and you made that remark about experts. Now, an electrician is a real expert. He's actually an expert. A plumber's an expert. These people are actually experts. Academics aren't experts in fucking anything. No. Very rarely.
They just stereotype shit, and largely they were, I was going to say about the humanities. When you say about them coming out and being dumber when they come out, it's not because they didn't learn stuff. It's because the indoctrination, the Marxist indoctrination, overpowered the education that they were meant to receive while they were there.
Yeah. So it is strange though, isn't it? This sort of the way, and by the way, I found maybe 5 or 6 articles on this exact story, all with pretty much the same headlines. There's a huge problem. Like, look at this. Look at the next paragraph. Experts said terrifying demographic shifts had created a deficit of educated men. Terrifying. It's terrifying. A deficit of educated men and a growing problem of leftover professional women, with female graduates vastly outnumbering males in many countries. Now, do you know Martin Dobney? He writes in the UK for various. He had an article in Heat Street on this, and he said perhaps it's the fact that when men around the age of these women, say their mid-30s, are looking at those women and going, well, I just don't want to, no, I'm going to go for something younger. You've left it too late. Sorry.
Yeah, see, I don't, well, that's if men want to do all of that. I forget what I was going to go with that, but it's not that they don't want to marry a woman that's got more money. Everybody would probably want to marry somebody that's, secure and financially secure. It's that they know that they're going to get this bloody financial domination. I'm more successful. The women aren't going to, again, I'm only generalizing, but they're going to tend to rub it in more and take advantage of it and things like that. Whereas a man sort of wouldn't say anything about the fact that it was just part and parcel of his life that he was the worker and he made more money and looked after the little woman and all of that, if you want to use that term. But men, women, this is what this article's sort of going on about, sort of how they resent the idea that a man might make less, and that's more what a man's reluctant to get into. What another fucking thing that you're gonna be groaning about in the future?
It's already a tough case to make that men in the Western world should get married, and now you've got another thing on top of that. But there was, I put this in a couple of videos that I've made. You may have seen the Pew Research survey that came out maybe 3-4 years ago now, and it detailed this switch between the percentage of women and men who said that they valued marriage as an important part one of the most important things in their life is to get married. And something like 35% of men thought it was, and only 30% of women. This was going back 20 years, and that's completely flipped around now. And something like 37% of women say that marriage is important, and only 28% of men. And so even though that's 9% difference or so, that's millions of people when you're talking about a place like the United States. There's a huge gap of millions of men who just like, don't think so.
And also, you're talking about a swing there. Mate, I'm just going to answer this comment here. Gary, I sent you something via email ages ago. Yeah, and I actually put I remember that, and I put my email address in the comment so you could send something to me, and then I don't actually remember getting anything, dude, from you. So I don't know who you sent it to, but I don't think it was me.
And the other interesting part of that Pew Research survey is that when it came, they ranked a bunch of things. How important are they to you? And men and women actually answered the same percentage when it came to education. That men and women both thought that education was equally important. So, but the one thing that really stood way out, something like 65% of women said the man needs to have a job or a good job, and only something like 20% of men thought that was necessary for the woman. And so that, more than education, at least on that big survey, was the defining factor between the biggest difference between what men and women thought was important in a partner was that they have a good job.
Oh, well, it's all social construct, isn't it? It's social construction working in their favor, and when it doesn't, it's problematic.
Well, this is the mirror image of how patriarchy is used. Like, okay, patriarchy is responsible for women's problems, and it's also like responsible for men's problems. Because if you turn around and say, yeah, look, men commit suicide higher, oh yeah, that's also patriarchy, right? And in this case, we have sort of this push for more and more women to go to university. We've changed the way we school kids. It's more about coursework, not exams, because girls do better at coursework and not exams. So we've changed our school systems in the Western world to largely cater towards women's learning styles. Now they've prospered under that system and they're doing better. And now there's a problem, but they're not going to admit to maybe this problem was brought about by too much focus and money and time pushing the education system in the direction of the way women learn. No, we're not going to own up to that. It's still men's fault because they, I guess they're lazy. They're playing computer games. They're just not trying at school anymore. But in actual fact, it's sort of the success of women in education is at least part of the problem. And they do get to that further on in the article a little bit, but let's keep going ahead here. Researchers found that in more than 90% of cases, the women were attempting to buy extra time because they could not find a partner to settle down with amid a dearth of uneducated men. Experts, here we go again, said the research busts the myth that selfish career women were choosing to out their fertility. I think that should be put their fertility on ice in a bid to put their careers first. So I think that's interesting because this sounds like one of those, when a woman's sexually assaulted, the first thing she hears is, what were you wearing? It sounds like one of those straw men's. Like, do you think, because if a woman puts her career first, like she works her ass off till she's 35, I don't think she's selfish. I think she's made a choice, and there comes trade-offs with choices. All that, it's just a trade-off. If you go hard at your career, well, that means when you get older, A, it's going to be harder to get pregnant at 35, and B, it's harder to find a partner to settle down with. That's just a trade-off you make. It's not that you're selfish.
Yeah.
But
But it's this, you know, where women are this expectation that they're meant to have it all and do it all and be in 3 places at once. Well, we're not the ones. We're not the ones that said that you needed to do that. Men have never said that. That's you know, your second wave of feminism. We don't want to be under the thumb. We want our own thing. Well, that's the whole thing. Where you have to go out and work for it, and that's where your day goes. There's your time. Where do you think men were?
Yeah, it's strange the way they put it. It's like it's got kind of it kind of reminds me of the superannuation debate. So for anyone in the chat, superannuation in Australia is kind of like your American equivalent of a 401k. You pay into it, and also your employer pays into it. It's supposed to be for your retirement. Now, one of the big so-called problems of women in Australia is that, oh, shock horror, women end up with 2/3 of the super that men do. And it's like, yeah, it's a pretty simple game. Superannuation accumulates based on how much you work. That's it. I mean, if you put in...
And so what did the ANZ do? They basically pledged that they're going to add an extra $550, I think it was, for fucking nothing, right, to women's superannuation to balance that off. But to do that, they're actually in violation of the Sex Discrimination Act to do that. So what do? They apply for a 10-year stay, a 10-year exemption, and get it. And they've already been pre-promised the next 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck me.
Yeah, and it's so ridiculous because all you've got to do is take a woman, and it'll be easy to find one. Any woman that's, 60 years of age today who didn't get married and who worked all her life, and she's got a stack. She'll be retired. She'll be comfortable as hell. It's got enough.
Is they're gonna give it to you, but if I wanted that extra $550, I have to work for it. I have to put in overtime. But you just get it. You get it given to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and most people at ANZ, you work for a bank. There's no overtime. You've got no chance of making it up. But
it's not Australia National Bank. It's not ANZ. It's Bank of Australia and New Zealand, if I remember correctly.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that we've seen this numerous times with the pay gap. Look, we had the ad during the Super Bowl. Who was that? Was that Audi? It was Audi, wasn't it?
The racing with the Billy car with the car.
Yeah,
that was
girl.
Audi. Yeah.
And so of course on Twitter, everyone went on Twitter and they said, "Oh, so Audi, you pay your female employees less than your males?" No, we don't do that at Audi. Oh, so it must be all the other companies that do that. Then Holden in Australia, Holden Motor Company, which is GM, GM's Australian arm. For those that don't know, they did the same thing, and then people got on Facebook and said, "So Holden, you pay your female employees less?" "Oh, no, we pay equal here. It's all those other companies that don't." No one does it. That's the thing. I mean, I always say this: go down to McDonald's and apply for a job and ask them, is there a different rate of pay for women and men? There isn't. No. Another good one is, for those that don't know, in Australia, they publish the graduate salaries every year for Australian graduates. They don't publish every single major, but they publish most of them. And what you find there is that the difference between what male and female graduates gets paid is about 1% to 2%. And sometimes it's in favour of the women, depending on the major. So you have, Mark Latham actually pointed this out on Sunrise with that Dickhead O'Keefe, and Van Fatham was on there as well. But the point is that why would companies are willing to pay women the exact same rates straight out of university, graduate salaries, but then some reason 5-10 years later they're paying them 20% less? Like, what happened? Well, bearing happened. Well, that's if you pan it over the crib. But I mean, how much of an effect do you think Howard's introduction of enterprise bargaining sort of affected that? Because a lot of people
therefore moved away from, you know, the award-based system. I mean, in the public sector and all of that still applies, but in private companies, there's a lot more scope for companies to
individual
hire. Yeah, but also do it on merit. Effectively, you know, they're going to go, well, he's a bloke and we're carting concrete blocks and he's going to be able to cart so many a day. And she's a woman and she can only cart so many concrete blocks. I'm just throwing that out as an example, right? But, you know, she's come to the job and he said, yeah, I got a wife and kids, but my wife looks after the kids. Yeah, okay, so I can put him up for 2 hours overtime and get this extra work. I'll have to pay him and all of that. But she can't do overtime anyway. Well, I can't do that. I've got you know, 2 kids, and I was actually hoping that you'd let me go at 3 p.m. anyway. So you know, so of course they're going to get paid less because they've got more choice. Again, it comes down to that thing. We don't have the choice. They have the choice. So at least they have the choice, you know, and having the choice is a privilege. But of course, it's going to come at some price. You know, you're not at work. Why should you get fucking paid if you're not there working?
That's what I've never understood about maternity leave. I mean, if a woman decides to have, let's say she takes, your kid's got to be 4 years old by the time they get to kindergarten. Let's say she takes off 4 years for the kids' first 4 years. Now, are you telling me that she should come back after 4 years and not have lost her position in the pecking order, i.e., she comes back where she was when she left, not equal to the person who stayed there for 4 years and worked their ass off?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what you're asking. If you want equality of outcome, which is what they want, they don't say that. They call it, you notice they now use the word equity. We want more equity, which is just another way of saying we want equality of outcome. So to get equality of outcome, what you're saying is that, okay, so you piss off for 2, 3, 4 years and you want to come back and get paid the same as the person who's been there working for 4 years. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And look, I know of 3, I can think directly of 3 times of women coming forward and saying, I'm pregnant, the very next day after they became eligible for maternity leave. You know, like a lot of things I've seen it written into contracts where basically, you know, you couldn't just walk in and go next day. You know, you had to serve a 3 months or a 6 months probation. But you know, on 3 times I've seen the very next day. So, like, you know, there's definitely women out there that play it, effectively, and time their pregnancy to maximise effectively getting paid for going off and having a baby.
Yeah, I think the problem is, I mean, there are some, if you're a, say, high-flying female lawyer and you're in a, you know, good firm, they will often pay you better than the government mandated maternity leave, right? They'll pay you more. They'll pay you your whole salary because they say, look, we think you're a fantastic person, great employee, so we're going to pay you for 12 months. Go have 12 months off and we'll just pay you your salary. They'll do that. Private companies will do that. And and on the proviso that you're going to come back full time after 12 months, they will do that. I think the problem is when you've got government mandated maternity leave for people who are easily replaceable. You're not giving women who are valuable employees necessarily. They might be fine at their job. They might be completely competent, but you can train another person up to do that job in a week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're going to pay this person to not work at your company. This is a massive drain on businesses. But you have to pay them.
Just a sidetrack for a second. Rico 8181 is sort of like tagged me in the chat. Tell us how you feel about Clementine Ford. Well, I've been thinking about doing a video about that. And just quickly, I actually think that all she is a fucking troll that's a provocateur that goes out of her way, doesn't mean any of the shit she says because she's actually got a kid and hetero and all of that with her, apart from the fact that she's a fucking Marxist. She basically says all this controversial shit because now she's publishing books and she's this high noticed profile fucking feminist, and it's all because she's got a foul mouth and just says disgusting things about men. So I would actually recommend it's come to the time where a lot of people should just ignore her and not take it in. Don't read her fucking articles. Don't buy a book. And when she says kill all men, just go, yeah, next. And she'll shrivel up and drop off like a fucking string wart.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I think I did a video recently on Yasmin Abdel-Magee, and it's like I had to think twice about it. It got a lot of views, but you think twice about it because you're actually giving these people more ammunition, or you're giving them more of a spotlight than they actually deserve. I mean, just let them gently fade into that good night.
Mm. And Van Batten, she's you love her as well, right, Indy? Van Batten.
She's a joke. I mean, and she's a
joke. She's a loon. She's a loon. Like Ford's a Marxist and all of that, but she doesn't push the political agenda and all of that. Vatim's just
she's a communist.
Yeah, she's a communist, but she's such a she's not so much a provocateur as she lives to be a bully.
Oh yeah, and she believes it. Like like you said, I think Clementine, a lot of it's an act, but Batten believes it. I think.
Yeah,
she really believes in it. She believes in the cause. She would really like to see the hammer and sickle flying above Parliament House.
Oh yeah. She's got something wrong with her. Fucking clueless.
Yeah. Let's get back to, what did I say? Experts. They said sweeping social changes meant that many professional women now struggled to find a partner that felt like an equal match. In recent decades, the gender balance at British universities has tipped dramatically. We know the stats. 54% were women by 2000. This group, now in their late 30s, is finding it harder to find a man of equal status, fertility experts said, and the trend is set to steepen. I mean, look, the thing is, though, I was looking today as part of this research at the fertility drop-off. Now, it starts to drop off, in the early 20s, but it's still at a high level. But once you hit that 34, 35 mark, it falls off a fucking cliff. So if you've left it to your late 30s, you're already in trouble.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it drops off actually really after 28, 29. But sure, a woman can fall pregnant sort of, late 30s and even into her early 40s. But it's a lot, my understanding is, I'm not a fucking doctor, but from what Mrs. Awesome tells me, it actually drops off quite a lot after late 20, because traditionally in ancient times and everything before the 20th century, women were having bloody children at 13, 14, and sometimes even younger in some cases. They got their birthing out of the way early.
Yeah, I think Muhammad's missus had some kids pretty early on.
Yeah. Well, if he could tell the difference between the kids and the mother.
Let me see if I can find that thing I was looking for.
Yeah,
so
I found you said that article, just while you find that the continuous repetition of the missing men.
Yeah, they're missing there. That's my point. It's like the men are there. They're just
not.
They're just. I mean, you're just not noticing them because they don't have fucking university degrees. You bloody nonsense.
Again, it comes down to this thing. They need to stop thinking in terms of Mr. Right and look more for Mr. Reasonable or even Mr. Ideal. Right, if you want to. No one is just everything that you want them to be in all aspects. You're going to have to make some compromises along the way. Men do it.
Yeah. Well, that's another aspect. I think we've talked about that before. They carry on like men are just living the life of Riley. They have no concerns. They make no sacrifices. They don't have to worry about trade-offs in their life. I mean, men have to worry about that all the time. I mean, as a man, especially if you're a young professional man and you're earning a decent wage and, and you're 30 years old, and you're looking around and you've got, because you're successful and you've got a fair bit of choice. And do you want to tie yourself down and now start sharing half your income to raise a family. Some people want to do that, but that's a choice too. That you can take risks earlier in your life when you don't have that kind of stuff to deal with, and that's a trade-off you have to talk about.
And I think Mr. Aussie Accent's got something here. He basically says, Mr. Right only wants young pussy.
Oh, look, I think it's
because
Dave Cullen.
Mr. Right knows he is of some value, even if he's not outwardly cocky about it.
Here he is.
What I miss.
We were just talking. I'm sure you've probably seen this article. What I've got up there now is I just got up the fertility chart where you see. I don't know if that's big enough to see on the screen, but at about 37, I mean, women have already, the fertility has been declining, but after 37, it really starts to drop off.
Right.
Like really, really strongly. So these women that have left it that late are already in trouble. We were talking about this article, Dave. I think you probably would have seen.
Oh, the shortage of ineligible men. Yeah.
I just want to say, Mr. Cullen, pleasure to meet you in person at last, even if it's in live stream.
Yeah, you too, man. You too. It's good to see you. I saw you doing a Under the Radar episode some time ago, which is great. So.
Yeah, I actually sent you a message the other day in YouTube messages. I know you've been sort of busy and you were overseas and everything, but I'll just sort of say openly, if you've got the time, I was going to ask if you would you be at all interested in doing a guest spot on True Fake News for me. But that's something to discuss later.
I never read those messages, man. I don't think anybody reads them because the messages are fucking terrible. But shoot me DMs or something, and I think I'm following you. I should be.
No, you're not. That's why I couldn't actually get you on Twitter.
Right, let's do that now. Let's sort that out now. Yeah, so tell us about that article. What's the story? Is this about more women are entering the workplace at a high level and pursuing high-level corporate careers, and that's the reason why they can't marry above their station? They can only go down, which women don't tend to do.
Kind of, yeah. But they haven't. Of course, they're not going to say it's because that feminism has been too successful and we've changed our education system to cater to women, and that's why there are more educated women. The problem is, Dave, a dearth of marriageable men.
Yes.
Okay. Men are not educated enough, because you can imagine, we can just play the alternative reality here, and we said, imagine this was an article about men refusing to marry women because they weren't attractive enough. They weren't up to their standards. This would be unbelievably sexist. But for women to say men aren't educated enough, well, that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's actually a male problem.
Yeah. The where are all the good men gone kind of thing? Well, they're either with really good women who are not feminists, or they have given up on women entirely because there's too many feminists.
Yeah.
But even if you erase that, it's logic defying to say, you argue for the pay gap, you want to earn equal or more, and then complain that men are earning less. Well, isn't that the end result of what you strove for? It's got to be that way.
Yeah. Again, it's the mirror image of the patriarchy. The patriarchy is the fault, is the cause of women's problems and men's problems. And in this case, this women's success in education and the workplace is the cause of their own problem. But of course, they won't put that on themselves. They'll put it back on men. So basically, Dave, this was about the fact that more women are freezing their eggs at clinics. And this was a study that hasn't been published, by the way. This study hasn't been published. It was only presented at a conference in Geneva. And I'll get to the specifics in a minute, because the sample size is small, and they didn't even have a proper solicitation period, so they don't know the response rate even, which is an important thing in surveying people. And these were detailed interviews. So it's about the growing number of women that are freezing their eggs because they can't find the educated man. So they're freezing their eggs in the hope that they find this man and then they can get pregnant. But of course, the big problem with that is that, and I looked this up before we went on air, that apparently IVF still only has a 25% success rate, 75% failure rate. And that's, of course, dependent on at what age you freeze your eggs, so if you're freezing your eggs and you're 38, then your chances drop to less than 10%.
Well, I'm given a little bit of hope by the Roe effect.
The Roe effect.
ROE, the Roe effect. It's Roe versus Wade. It's this theory that, you've probably heard of this.
Yeah.
So the more people on the left push for abortion, or they push for things like this, which is more women out of the caregiving game of having kids and more in the workplace, the less feminists, the less leftists, and the less abortion you will have in the future, because they're actually destroying themselves. It's kind of like what hard far right, religious folks will say secularism has given rise to contraception, so that in and of itself will actually lead to less secularists in the future, which is potentially true, because the more abortion you have, the less people pushing for abortion there will be in the future, because they're killing their own. And feminists are effectively killing their own kind. So the more of this we have, we probably only have another generation of this left before they will effectively give rise to their own extinction.
Well, just on a lighter note, when you first said Roe, I thought, what, the feminists are naming their eggs after fish eggs now, are they? when you first said Roe, I don't know why, but I just went to fish eggs. So.
Yeah. Martin Dobney wrote an article on this. Maybe you know who Martin Dobney is, UK writer. And he sort of echoes what you just said, Dave. His name of his article is "Will Darwinism Kill Feminism?" It's essentially the same as what you're saying. They're going to kill themselves off. Idiots.
What does it say there? In 1985, 45% of UK students were female, but by 2000, 54% were women. Yeah, when I went to college a few years ago here in Dublin, there was something like, I think 85 people in my journalism class, and of that number, about 50-something of them were women. And then there's a university in Galway that's giving away free degree programs to women.
Really?
Recently. Yeah. So just, not even like a scholarship where you've got a reduced price point for a private college. No, free.
What's the grounds for that? I mean, it's not like women.
I think I have the thing here. Let me see if I can find the flyer. Carry on there while I see if I can dig it up here.
But it's not. It's not because there's less of them attending uni, though, is it? Because isn't it pretty much across the board that women are the higher percentage of university attendees these days?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let me see if I can do a screen share of this. I don't know if you can see that. You see that? Maybe it's a bit. Maybe it might be taking up too much of the screen.
Maybe I have to click on you, do I?
You might do, yeah.
Let me. Oh no, looks like you, Dave. Yeah, there we go.
So Equal Ireland, access to adult education. Let's see if that's coming through on the stream there. I'll have to refresh the page. Is everyone able to see that?
There we go. Is that it?
It's up there now.
Yeah, Equal Ireland.
Okay, so yeah, fulfill a lifelong dream, free university degree for women over 21 in Galway. And then they talk about the various steps. It's interesting, isn't it? It's still going on. Ireland is a good 5 or 6 years behind other countries who've realized feminism is fucking cancer.
Yeah, they don't even tell you why. There's no explanation there as to, like, oh, there's a dearth of women in university. No.
It really is a case of the less patriarchy. The more we've destroyed the patriarchy, the more we have to worry about the patriarchy.
Yeah. Well, I can see the reasons between steps 2 and 3 there. It's because of 2017, and on the next tier, it's up because of vagina. Pretty sure they're both. That's got the reasons pretty well covered, I think.
Yeah, because vagina. What other explanation do you need?
That's it, exactly.
Well, let's go back to the original. Oh, come on. You can't be this incompetent.
You close the tab. Is that?
Yeah, probably.
Well,
Is independent man homosexual? No, not yet.
He's all sexual.
I am thinking about it because it seems to me to be a much easier solution. to a lot of problems. It just would make things a lot easier, I think. Is there anything left on here? Oh yes, Professor. This is the expert, Marcia Inhorn, Professor of Anthropology at Yale University. Women found themselves losing out in a game of musical chairs because there were simply too few men of the same caliber. I mean, Jesus Christ. Caliber to go around. As I was saying before you came on, Dave, that I had a look at the United States statistics on what type of degrees men and women are doing. And of course, women are overrepresented in communications degrees, humanity degrees, social work degrees, ethnic studies, gender studies, all those useful topics that are going to get you lots of money. So this idea that women are far too educated is a little bit misleading, I think.
Yeah, it's basically creating a class. It's creating a class warfare based upon gender now. I'm trying to find that article on the BBC that said, I can't remember what the exact thing was, but that girls are something like 80% more likely to go to third level than boys born in 2016. This is an article from last year. I mean, how can that be sustainable? Who's going to have the kids? Where's your population going to come from?
The Muslims.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because it is dwindling in the West. It's only growing because, Muslims are having like 8.1, I think, on average now or something.
Yeah, I mean, that statistic is what you find when Muslims move to developed countries is that their birth rates drop as well. So you can go back to, say, even in a place like Iran, women were they had the highest birth rates in the world 40, 50 years ago, and today they're down to about 2. So it does have an effect.
The article in DMs, it's on the BBC News website. This is something that probably useful from last May. It's actually 75%. A baby girl born in 2016 will be 75% more likely to go to university than a boy if current trends continue.
Yeah. I saw that one. Yeah, I just wonder. I wonder, you'll end up with a sort of if that actually plays out, you'll end up with a kind of a Sweden where the professional class will be women and men will do all the dirty, dangerous jobs and the ones that don't require qualifications. Of course, you'll have qualified men in certain areas, but you'll have a professional class, which is women, then you'll have feminist governments, and you'll end up like Sweden.
Yeah. Well, that's finished as a nation anyway, really. I mean, you saw the women-only music festival that they're trying to run, which leftists have celebrated. You're still going to need male security. You're still going to need some male performers. Otherwise, you're not going to sell any tickets. You're still going to need people to clean up the place afterwards, who are going to mostly be men. So, I mean, really, this is basically saying, I think the woman who put it forward said that until all men learn to behave themselves, as opposed to it's mostly migrants from certain places in North Africa and the Middle East.
Yeah, you can't admit that. There was another headline today, I don't know if you saw it, that Sweden was voted the best place in the world for migrants.
Of course.
Of course it is.
Of course, they have no culpability. They can literally get away with rape because they can say that they're a 15-year-old as opposed to being 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I replied to the tweet. Saying, I bet sure it wasn't voted the best place for natives in the world.
For native men. Well, he said they'd rather smear 50% of the population, i.e. men, because they'll just sit there and take it, rather than being seen as potentially racist because they have to call out the ideology that's motivating a certain percentage of the new intake, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, you see this often, don't you? I mean, you've seen this absurd conflation where, take, for example, the Manchester bombing attack, and you had feminists writing pieces saying, this is not terrorism, this is misogyny.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is...
Well, wasn't that Vice? Wasn't it Vice ran that? It was an attack on girls, attack on women. Yeah.
And by the way, I think of the 22 people, there was 5 or 6 males that died as well. I think that may have slipped by. there was some number of males that died in that thing. It wasn't all women, wasn't all girls.
Well, I'm surprised that they didn't suggest that they were actually trans men. You know, that they were women. They'd only just recently transitioned before they, you know, met their untimely end.
Well, how's that going to go with?
I love Godfrey Elfwick's claim. You know, he says Islamic terrorism has no religion.
Yeah. I wonder how that's the trans thing is going to go with those Sweden festivals. Surely you're going to get some people show up saying, "Look, I'm a trans woman."
Well, exactly. They've already normalized that in their society, so there's nothing to suggest that, you know, you won't get guys showing up in a dress going, "Hey, I'm all the genders, so you got to let me in."
And what's to say? I mean, if you're one of these, you know, guys that refugees or whatever that wants to hang out in a rape mob, well, what do? You don't have to go to the concert. Just hang out at the train station near the concert or something. You're going to have hordes of groups of women all by themselves. You know, it's kind of like how they have those women-only carriages on a train. Well, if you're a guy, I mean, make a beeline for that carriage.
Yeah.
You know, you're advertising it. Yeah.
It wasn't segregated carriages, but actually a thing in the UK back in the 50s. I was sure I heard Sargon say that they had them, and then they complained, you know, and they wanted it gotten rid of, and now they want to bring it back again. It's like segregation in the US, you know. They didn't want segregation because it was, and now they want to be segregated because, you know, they're triggered by white people, and it's just grass is greener syndrome. They've just got to insist on having whatever it is that they don't have right now.
Someone asked in the comments, is Tasmanian a gender? No, Tasmanian is a species, and we're not even sure what kind of species it is. If you've ever been to Tasmania, yeah, it's a frightening place. People.
It's Australia's inbred jokes, you know. What was it? How do you cut off a Tasmanian's cock? Give your sister an uppercut.
Yeah, that's it. Good old Tassie. Oh well, they're kind of like the what are they? They're the deliverance of Australia.
This is the thing I just put up there from Godfrey or whatever he calls himself.
Let me click on Dave.
You should have it there. Things that cause Islamic terrorism.
There we go. Intolerance. Not enough diversity on the BBC. Katie Hopkins. The ancient holy book.
Terrorism. The ancient holy book which promises a blissful eternity to the afterlife for anyone who wages deadly jihad against the infidels. You need that kind of humor because it's very, very powerful, I think.
Have you? I don't know who put this up recently, but people were going around saying Islamophobia leads to terrorism, and people were saying, "Wait a minute, I thought you said terrorism has nothing to do." So if being Islamophobic causes terrorism, that kind of blows that one out the water, doesn't it? How can that be?
Yeah, well, I love the way they say things like, the more we call out Islam, and that's just going to feed more terrorism. It's like, what? I thought it was peaceful. Surely they will be keen to prove themselves as being peaceful by saying, hey, you know what? You can say whatever you want about us, but we will not be motivated to do more terrorism just based upon your criticism of us. And we're going to prove to you how peaceful we are by, oh, wait, doing more violence. But I don't get it. I think the left somehow knows this, to be honest. I think they know this. I think they are there's part of them that are probably, they willfully are aware of this and they're just simply oppressing it. They're suppressing this notion. And then there's the other side, I think, that simply go along with it and are genuinely clueless. But I don't when you see like the likes of Antifa, the people who are the leaders of that, I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They simply want to make society unworkable, and they're all about destroying capitalism. They don't have a solution. Yeah. I think they know communism won't work. Yeah,
I say that quite often. That to me, that you ask, how does feminist reconcile itself with the subjugation of women through Islam, and it's the common shared enemy theory that my enemy's enemy is my friend, without the realization that they're also your enemy, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Right?
Feminism is Islam's useful idiots, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to each other.
Yeah.
And that as well. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think Douglas Murray, I haven't read the book yet, The Strange Death of Europe, but I think he makes this point about the destruction of Christianity, and he makes the point that we've kind of replaced Christianity with a secular religion, but in Christianity there was at least the chance of redemption, right? Mm-hmm. But in the modern form, the secular form, there's no redemption. It's just rip it down, rip the system down. There's no redemption, there's nothing. Rip it down, that's it.
That's what Andrew Breitbart said. He said that the purpose of social justice was there wasn't any end goal to make things better. It was to make society unworkable. But there's an illusion that they're pushing for more equality and they're pushing for more progress and they want to change this to make it better. But actually they know full well that there isn't. I mean, it's just a case of there's a table, there's lots of stuff on the table. We've dealt with everything that's on the table. So now we have to go after the legs of the table itself. Mm-hmm. There won't be a table.
Somebody made a good comment on my channel a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about social justice and socialism in general was you see you've got a flat tire, so the way to bring about equality is to let all the other tires down.
Yeah.
And you know, and I find that with socialism is, you know, everybody knows that socialism has been tried numerous times everywhere and it doesn't work anywhere. So they just focus, they can't sort of validate how socialism's actually going to succeed. So they just tell you that capitalism's bad, capitalism's shit. It's all, it's not look at what this good thing that we can bring in change, but look how horrible it is now, even though it's actually fucking not horrible and we're free and you know, when we've got money and, I mean, it took a couple of centuries to get us up in capitalist society so that you know we could all sort of have a bit of a share in it.
Yeah. Well, you even look at, you know, like the financial crisis of 2008-9 put a dent in sort of progress. But even notwithstanding that, you look at any chart. I'm subscribed to some guy on Twitter who puts these charts out every day. If you look at, for example, the number of people that are living in poverty today, last year for the first time it went below 10% globally. Now, in 1990, it was about 30%. If you look at child deaths by disease going down, everything, every metric you can point to is getting better for the world as a whole. And yes, you know, the middle class in the UK might be stagnating, but overall, capitalism has improved the hell out of living standards globally, and it's still getting better.
Yeah, and Camille Paglia made a good point too when she said, you know, people should be grateful to capitalism because what bourgeois society did was it basically freed us from aristocracy, and you know, and that aristocracy was that whole sort of privilege, you know, privileged classes before the law, and slowly, I mean, sure, money buys privilege and that in court things and there's corruption and those sorts of things, but you know, the classical liberal idea is that every man is meant to, you know, be of equal worth as an individual, whether he's a king or a commoner. And that you know, they just don't know their history and know that's how people had to live years ago. You know, people come in and take your property, and there was nothing you could do about it because you didn't have individual rights, and there was a real hierarchy. Not just a bloody perceived one or one that you dream up to try and win some argument.
Yeah. And there's that good old quote from Thomas Sowell, the conservative economist. It's like, capitalism's not perfect. It's about trade-offs. It's about trade-offs. You got to trade this off for that. And so in capitalism, yes, you're going to trade off the idea of equality a bit because people are going to earn and be judged based on merit, not, you know, equality of outcome. So yes, there will be some very rich people, there'll be inequality, but at the end of the day, all boats rise, you know, in a rising tide. Whereas, and it's a philosophy about growing the pie and bringing everybody up, not to the same level, but at least everybody goes up. Whereas socialism is all about just redistributing the pie. They've got no plan to grow it. They just want to take from Peter to pay Paul, and eventually you run out of Peter's money.
Yeah, and like you pointed out in that video that you did quite a few months ago, where you talked about, if you took the golden handshake of some CEO of McDonald's and you shared it amongst all the employees, they'd all get an extra fucking $1.67 per year.
Well,
I feel like a slither, nothing meaningless. So you've taken all of that wealth and all of that capital that could be put into, big infrastructure or bigger projects, and that sort of makes new industries grow, and you just share it amongst people that go, oh, well, fucking shot of heroin, that's something to do on Thursday night. That's gone.
Yeah, that brings up some memories, doesn't it, Dave? That's from the old Sargonism days. It's the Sargonism live stream. I think maybe Dave's stepped out to take a piss.
Fair enough.
Can't hear him. Don't know. Let's just plow ahead here with some more of this article, and then we'll get on to the next one.
Yep.
Come on. How is that not working? You bastard.
I can see it.
Got it? I just took a little while. Yeah, just took a little while.
Yeah, no,
so down the bottom here, she said she gets actually some self-awareness here. It may be about rethinking the way we approach this. Most women who are educated would like to have an educated partner. Traditionally, women have also wanted to marry up to go for someone more successful, financially well off. No, she's admitted to hypergamy. Maybe women need to be prepared to be more open to the idea of a relationship with someone not as educated, but also maybe we need to be doing something about our boys and young men to get them off to a better start. Oh my God, do you think? Some women were paying a high price.
Yeah, we can hear you, mate.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. I was talking, but my mic just died, and it's very strange.
Putting those kids like they do in Victoria in primary schools, and putting them in front of a class where they teach them what's the thing, the greatest threat to women, historically the greatest threat to women is men. That's not going to help them grow up with like a confidence and make them want to get ahead in the world. You're teaching that to primary school kids. You're teaching them that they're shit before they can even get to high school. Fuck me, dude.
Yeah, they have to make a pledge to the girls in the classroom. And apparently the girls feel, it's not like the girls are sitting there gloating about it. The girls feel fucking weird about it as well. You know, the boys are made stand up and make a pledge not to respect women or some shit like that. It's all pretty bizarre. That's not safe schools. That's what is it? Respectful relationships.
Respectful relationships. Yeah.
Jesus Christ! It's always all these horrible, terrible Orwellian things are couched in this really wonderful language. You know, safer schools. It couldn't be less safe for kids. I mean, they will literally take your kids away from you now in Australia and Canada and give them the surgeries and give them the hormones. If you don't do it yourself, you'll have your kids taken from you. Bill 89 in Canada.
Yeah, Australia's
it's basically a form of child abuse, isn't it?
Yeah, Australia's got it bad. Really bad now.
Luckily, we got rid of safe schools in New South Wales. Tasmania was going to get rid of it, but it probably doesn't matter down there because they're all married to their brothers and sisters anyway. Was it the Northern Territory was doing away with it as well? But Victoria, I mean, you're fucked if your kids going to school down there. They are in, boots and all.
Marxistan.
So is it like Sydney, Melbourne, all the big cities are kind of like the United States, like New York, California, the same kind of thing? You got the liberal infestation in the big places.
Yeah.
It definitely in Melbourne. So Sydney's okay. Well, Sydney's gotten rid of safe schools for a start, but they've still got respectful relationships. Sydney's in New South Wales. Melbourne's in Victoria. So Melbourne is really full bore into it. And on top of that, they've got a very soft justice system, and they've got a kind of crime wave going on there with African crime gangs as well. On top of it, they've got the worst of it all.
Yeah, I think you said this before. Social justice is winning. Well, whatever it was, whether it was Trump signing in those laws to encourage more women into STEM, whatever, or something like this, we can debate these guys on social justice and win everything in social media, rather in YouTube or wherever it is. But they still have the institutional power in universities and now in politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that video you talked about, social justice is winning. That was basically the guys on The Outsiders, which is a TV show on Sundays here in Australia. They went through sort of a list of unconscious bias training going through our institutions. One was the Reserve Bank of Australia. Another one was the Treasury Department in Australia. They're all implementing unconscious bias training. And last week or the week before, both Gary and I did a video on this. What they did a trial, Dave, where they
blind recruitment.
Blind recruitment. So they assessed CVs without people's names on them. So you couldn't tell, or their ethnicity. So you couldn't tell whether they were male, female, or Indigenous, or some kind of migrant, right? And they rated, and this is a way to train. It's aimed at white men to stop hiring people that look and sound like them. And what they found,
they expected that to get more women into these higher positions. Yeah. But the opposite effect, actually, it worked
the complete opposite way. They found out that the males who were in the males assessing the CVs were actually more likely to hire women when they knew the CV was a woman.
Right.
To also hire minorities.
More men would get hired. And so what did they do? Of course, they were instructed, put a halt on blind recruitment in the public service, because meritocracy is actually turning out in men's favour, so we can't have that. That's out. Stop it.
So what they actually found was that there was a bias in favour of women and minorities and against men. That's what they found. And so to implement blind recruitment would mean that actually more men would get hired, or another way to look at it is less women would get hired. And so, we better stop that then, because it's not working the way we thought it would work.
That reminds me, there's an elite business school. You probably heard about this story back in April. I covered this. One of my patrons sent it over, and it was a study into an MBA student program where single women were more likely in the program to downplay their career ambitions if they knew they were being assessed, or if the results of the survey were going to be seen by everybody in their class. It was just going to be seen by the people who was the immediate adjudicator. They didn't mind. So they said, oh yeah, I'll work every hour under the sun. But as soon as it was going public to the other men and women in their course, they would be like, oh, well, I would take a lower salary. I don't really want to work too long. And the reason is because the old, I suppose a woman's desire to have kids was kicking in there, and, subconsciously. And she's basically saying, I want to date some of these guys potentially. So I still want to be a mom. That was still coming out. You're not going to really fight the natural biological inclinations or the biological imperative, as it were, to mate, no matter what ideology you're pushing them through feminism.
Yeah, I thought you were going to I thought you were going to suggest that they were fishing for affirmative action, by saying, oh, I'm disadvantaged. Oh, I'm not going to do that well. No, I'm not that ambitious. So that you can get we'll help you. We'll put you in this job. We'll get you in this job. We'll kick him out, and you can have his job. Type of mentality. But it was something else.
There's another part.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave. No, you go ahead. Go.
No, it's funny. They said that overall 73% of single women said they had dodged at least one of these actions in terms of saying, hey, I'm going to push for promotion. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be more assertive. I'm going to look for a leadership role. I'm going to take more training, all that kind of stuff. As opposed to 60% of attached women, 43% of single men, and 50% of attached men. So in all the way around, whether a man was married or whether he was single, he was just more ambitious than women. The data didn't lie. And the funny thing is about that article, which I sent you on the DMs if you want to read it some other time, is that at the bottom of it, there's this woman, and she's completely triggered by this. She's this feminist who think, oh, it's all to do with the gender dynamics are out of whack because of some kind of unconscious bias, gender stereotyping, whatever it is. No, the women are reaching these conclusions by themselves. And what she's trying to say is the only reason the women are voting in favor of their genetic imperative to have kids and be moms is because they don't even realize how affected they are by the patriarchy. Can you imagine the amount of mental pretzeling and just mental fucking gymnastics that's required to come to that conclusion?
Yeah, see, I would just go, no, it's because you've got choice and we don't, numbnut.
Yeah, we have no choice. We have to get out there. We can't take a career break to have kids, so we just have to put up and shut up. And the fact that women are realizing this from generation to generation to generation, as we know over the last 30 years, is that women have found that their happiness rate is just going down and down. They're reporting to be more depressed and more disenfranchised with their lifestyle. Well, probably because deep down women want to be, heaven forbid we admit that women want to have kids.
Oh, yeah. Well, that can't be admitted.
But look, I was reading a thing. I didn't read into it and all of that, but I'm sure it was said basically that the male womb is just around the corner.
Fuck.
Now, I don't know if there'd be many men that would want to go there with that. I just can't. It's just something I certainly can't get my head around. But apparently,
Well, here's the thing. I think, the way that the word normal is now offensive, I think eventually there's going to be a marketplace for normal again, because everybody is just being weird in every respect. And I think eventually it's just going to come right back around again. People are going to, because it's like Hasbro, I think it was, that kids toy company, they're doing what a lot of the others are, and they're bowing to social justice. So they've started to say, we're eliminating the gender labels on our toys now. And everything is, My Little Pony can be for boys, and the princess stuff, all that. So eventually they're going to open up a market for companies to come in and go, yeah, this is for boys and this is for girls.
Yeah, because there'll be a niche for it.
Will backfire.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for feminists to sort of start saying that trans murderer is a valid expression, gender expression.
Oh, Stacey King is in the chat.
She is too. Congratulations, Independent. Love you. Back at you, sis. Maybe
what, cis, CIS?
Exactly. You were talking about normal, Dave. Cis is the new normal.
I fucking hate that word.
I'm just going back to the article here now. We'll finish this one up and then we'll move on to Sweden, because Sweden's fabulous. Most women, where did we get to? Open to the idea of relationship. Oh yeah. So in other articles in this, there's about 6 or 7 articles on this one story that quite a few of them said things like men are threatened by women that earn more money, or the women that are more educated than them. So you get to the point here down here, it says maybe women need to be prepared to be more open to the idea of a relationship with someone not as educated, but also maybe we need to be doing something about our boys and young men. I'd go down. Oh, yeah. In some cases, the women taking part in the in-depth interview said they would be happy to be in a relationship with someone less educated, but they felt they were intimidating to the men. So this wasn't coming from men. The women feel as though they would be more intimidating to the men. So this is just feelings. I'm sure there are some guys out there that might feel intimidated by an educated woman or a woman that earns a lot of money, but I really doubt that that's going to stop you from wanting to be with someone that you actually like, that's compatible, that you think's attractive. Again, this was put out as a headline. Oh, men are intimidated by educated women, so they won't marry them. Well, that's in your head.
I think I can understand where that's a reticence there amongst some of those women. I personally don't want a woman who is as ambitious as a man. I think I'm a pretty ambitious guy. I don't want to date a woman who thinks the way I do. I want her to think like a woman and have a woman's brain. So I personally don't want to date a woman who thinks like a bloke. So I can understand that. I'd prefer to be the primary breadwinner, but then again, I'm kind of a traditional guy. I think I'm normal, but then again, what's normal anymore?
Yeah, but I mean, these women aren't necessarily sort of type 1 personalities, Dave. I mean, because these women want to have kids, remember? I mean, a lot of them, I read a story today related to this about a woman who said, oh, I was a career woman and I was flying all over the world and loved my job. And then at 35, I was like, but I'll never get to hold hands with this little child. And, so a lot of these women, it's hitting them later in life. Oh shit, I'm 38. What's happened? So I think a lot of them if they were to get this Mr. Perfect. And again, it's because they've been told they can have everything. It's a sort of a false expectation. I think a lot of them would sort of take a step back. Very few women want to be the type 1 personality through till they're 65.
Yeah,
that's
wasn't
a very
that
small.
elderly woman who was interviewed by the BBC? Remember Sargon covered it, and she's really old. She's well in her 70s. She's no one to care, no grandchildren. I don't think she even had any children. I'm not sure. But she says feminism was great when you're in your 20s and 30s, but unfortunately it left a lot of women behind who wanted to be moms in a year alone. And I think that men, given the nature of the animal, I think men tend to do better alone than women do. We don't do great, but we do a little bit better because we have to be more independent. But women don't do as well as men do. We can retreat into other things. We'll get our hobbies going. We'll build our circle of men. Women don't tend to do that as well as men. And I think there's very different driving force needs emotionally for men and women. And feminism fails to recognize that because, again, it denies the gender dynamics and the differences between men, which instead of celebrating them, it completely denies them and says that they're the same. Women will cope just as well as men, which we don't.
Yeah. Let me see if there's anything worth talking about down here. Okay, so 105,000 18-year-olds started university last year compared to 135,000 females. So, I mean, if women still have this attitude, then there's just going to be more of them single. You know, my great fear with all this is that, people have talked about things like a bachelor tax, that some way it'll end up being our fault.
Yep.
And then there'll be some tax levied on women who want to have their own kids without a man, and we'll pay for it.
Yeah, well,
regardless.
Feminism benefits from the state, of course, and it's a big socialist program anyway. So women obviously want to have kids at the kind of the husbandry of the state that men will pay for, either through divorce courts or whatever it might be. And I agree with you, because this has been something that MGTOWs have said for a long time, which is that eventually they will bring in a bachelor tax, and the men who opt out will be punished. It's like what the MGTOWs use that term, shaming men to go back to the plantation. You're gonna fuck. I mean, it really is like the film Misery. You better fucking go back or else. It's about the most odious thing I can fucking imagine, just being taxed for your lifestyle.
Yeah, tax for not wanting to, go back to the plantation. Sorry, guys, women need to have children. They're going to have them without you, but you're going to pay for it anyway and get no benefits from it.
You're so fucking useless, but give us your fucking sperm and then pay for it, motherfucker.
Yeah. So this leads us on to the feminist capital of the world, and this fabulous story that came out today that I saw. Don't know if you've seen this yet, Dave. Swedish minister, reducing car numbers, a gender equality issue as they're driven mostly by men. You see, men drive more than women and they're taking up space, so it's a feminist issue. Sweden's environment minister has said reducing car numbers is a feminist issue as well as a matter of meeting carbon emissions, saying male drivers occupy space in Swedish cities at women's expense.
This is precisely the same as the feminist snowplowing thing. We know that most men drive on those roads because they're working in industry, they're driving vans, they're driving trucks. Is that going to be taken into account?
Probably not. That was brilliant, wasn't it? The snowplow thing where they said that they redesigned the route and it was a complete fuck up, and there was traffic jams everywhere, wasn't there? Because they decided, didn't they decide, Dave, with the snowplow thing, that they wanted to plow the driveways or streets of where women live more first? Yeah, so they changed the routes.
So you better plow. It's more important to plow the suburbs where there's less cars than it is to plow where the priority is, which is the jammed up motorways. And this actually led to a lot of injuries, obviously. And could have led to deaths.
Didn't it fuck up because the men couldn't get to work?
Yeah.
When they tried it and all the stuff wasn't happening because the men couldn't get there.
Yeah, it was. And I don't, honestly, Sweden's ability to cook just knows no fucking bounds. I don't know how it's still a country. Everything I hear out of the place, it's far worse than California.
But I feel, Dave, and I don't know what you feel about Ireland, but I feel Australia we're just behind them 10 or 15 years. I feel. I don't feel as though we we have a significant enough pushback yet in this country against it. There's bipartisan support for pretty much every sort of feminist cause in this country. That's the reality.
Yeah, well, this is what I've said. I know this is slightly off topic, but I think when you have a movement of skeptics, I don't mean like the skeptosphere on YouTube, but people who are skeptical and using social media to find the truth, before too long, something has to happen. It's not enough to just simply be speaking. You've got to get the butts on the seats. I think we've won the hearts and minds in many ways, but that's why there will be events. People will start to run things like Kilroy or whatever it might be, and people will enter politics. I think some of us eventually will start to see some of us having to do that because like, what else are we going to do? We can't just keep talking.
Yeah.
So,
what the fuck happened there? Why did that go off the screen?
It's like your friend, what's his name? The guy in Australia who used to be on Sky, Mark Latham.
Latham. Yeah. I mean, there's more and more people. There is a hopeful movement away from the major parties in Australia. We have now 1/3 of our electorate not voting for a major party, which is, in the good old days, you had somewhere around 75 to 80% of the population voting for one of the major parties. Now it's below 2/3. And that's the people that vote. Then there's all the people who just draw a dick on their voting paper and hand it in because, you had to vote in Australia. And so when you get down to it, there's actually less than 60% of the people are voting for major parties.
Yeah. Well, he had our Prime Minister recently come out and say that he strongly supports the policies of Justin Trudeau, and Trudeau came over to Ireland recently. So,
oh God.
Yeah, look, we're on our way, certainly on our way. I don't know really how much longer I can stay here with all the hate speech stuff that's apparently being drafted and ready to come down on political dissenters. So, yeah, look, I mean, we're all in the same boat. It just seems like a lot of it's all right now. It seems to be all the Western nations are heading for the same particular brand of liberalism, aren't they?
Yeah, I think, and I think this just comes back to sort of biology and psychology, that men continue. I think the younger generation is being red pilled to this stuff, but men, particularly old men in positions of power, just continue to acquiesce to the whims of, and I'm not going to say women because it's not women by and large, but it is the social justice types, largely a lot of women, feminist causes. They just continue to acquiesce. So you have, there's certain people in this country like Martin Parkinson, head of the public service in Australia, the Australian of the Year last year in 2016, they all get on board with the unconscious bias, the women, we need to promote more women, all of them, because I think that they have these guys are in their 60s and they have some leftover guilt from perhaps back in the 70s when they did get a leg up from being male. And so what they're going to do is they're going to throw a whole generation of younger men under the bus to assuage their own guilt.
I think it's true. The theory that I had about that was the daycare generation, which is the boomers were the first generation where there was a huge amount of kids just dropped off at daycare. And when the millennials came along, there's this huge, I think there is a disconnect. Boomers don't understand millennials. And so there's a vocal minority of millennials that are telling them what to do and do this and do that and have this unconscious bias and talk about feminism, whatever. And so they acquiesce because they just don't understand them. They don't get that this vocal minority of millennials do not represent all of them. Yeah.
And plus these guys have been in the system for 30, 35 years, 40 years. They're going to retire soon. They don't care. It's not going to affect them. They're just looking at retirement. They're trying to be popular rather than do the right thing. They realize that, if we throw the millennials this, we'll get them. I think that's the way they look at it. It's just political.
When you talked about before about acquiescence and that, I was reading yesterday Turnbull coming out and basically just saying openly that the Liberals here, and Dave, you probably already know that that's supposed to mean Conservatives here in Australia. It's not Liberal the way the Americans use it.
Okay.
They're centrist party, and when Menzies set it up, it was a centrist party, and I'm thinking,
which is bullshit.
That's bullshit. What the fuck are you talking about? It hasn't been centrist. Abbott, there was no way Abbott was a centrist, right?
No,
it's only been since you took over the prime ministership, and as I've said it many times before, since your wife started telling you at the breakfast table what you're going to do that day, right? That's when it became centrist, and you've got no opposition in this country, and that it gets back to that acquiescence thing. That you all you've got is the hard left, and then you've got the liberal centrists just going, no, it's cool. We're in
I don't know if you
do what you want.
I don't know if you heard Peter Credlin, former chief of staff to Tony Abbott. Her theory on this was that what Turnbull's decided to do is to move closer to Labor, so that there's not much policy difference, and to make it a popularity contest, because Shorten is just a very unpopular person. Even though Turnbull's government is doing terribly in the polls, he is still the preferred prime minister, because Shorten is just such a weasel, and no one likes Shorten. And so that's the game. So Liberals now, and they're supposed to be half conservative, half liberal, are running to the left to make it a popularity contest, instead of standing on principles, instead of standing on liberal principles. So they've given up the ghost. So we don't have a major right of centre party anymore. We have a left party. We have a in the centre party, but leaning left, which is the Liberals. Yeah. We have a far left party, which is the Greens. And then we have Cory Bernardi's Conservatives, which is gaining ground. He's only just started it 6 months ago.
And that's what I was going to say, the rift. You know, that's the other thing that was talked about yesterday in the article, was about the rift that's appearing within the Liberal Nationals, because it's still got Conservatives within it, and they're being made to toe this centrist line that they don't agree with. And that's why, guys like Bernardi, I know we're talking Aussie politics here for a bit, Dave, but there's a real lack of a genuine, and anyone that is considered sort of right or alt-right or new right or whatever you want to call it, all you get in Australia is the finger straight where it's fascist, Nazi, you know,
well,
as echoing what's going on around the world.
It's gonna embolden, if there ever is an alt-right party. I mean, it's going to be very small when it begins, but wherever it crops up, I think it's because the thing about the alt-right is that they don't lack conviction.
Yeah.
Right. They know that they say exactly what they mean. They hold to a certain particular set of values that they have, and that will unfortunately be attractive to a certain percentage of a very disenfranchised group of your population, within a particular demographic that's given up on the conservatives that were supposed to be there. The alt-right will be very much emboldened, and I think things can change and turn around very, very quickly if there ever is.
Do you have any semblance of something emerging on the right side of politics in Ireland? Is there any?
Yeah, probably it's very small, but there is a nationalist party. I interviewed Justin Barrett.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, they get much maligned. I've been maligned just for interviewing him. So it's there, but he thinks that it's probably going to be another 10 years before it really gains the kind of traction that it needs. Ireland is just too far back. Our media is just a joke. That's the thing that worries me. Is at least in the UK, you have something like UKIP, though very small and not really in contention for anything. At least they have a modicum of credibility amongst a particular voting base that they have. They have basically a fan base in a sense, and you have the likes of Nigel Farage, but you don't. We don't have that yet, and there's a desire for it. There's a demand for it. I see it in YouTube comments. I see it in our Irish people are far more woke than I thought they were, but they are not in the driving seat as I'm sure it is the same pretty much everywhere in Australia as well.
I got told off the other couple of weeks ago in one of my videos where I used the term woke in the way that you just used it, David. It was well, that only applies to. That only applies to black. You can't use that. Or fuck off.
I use that word all the time. I've completely taken it now.
Yeah. But I mean, the way I use it as a piss take, have a look at this woke individual.
Yeah. Well, that's how I was using it, And, oh, no. Somebody got their fucking butt hurt over it.
Did you see Gavin McInnes's rant about the word woke. He was going through some video where someone was saying, "Hey, white people, stop using the word woke." He's like, "I never used the fucking word woke. Never used it in my fucking life. You stop."
Oh yeah, I never used it up until then, and now I'm using it all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly, yeah. Tell me not to use it, and I will use it 1,000 fucking times.
Yeah, that prohibition doesn't work. All you get is a lot more drinkers.
Yeah. Well, listen to this mad feminist MP. A normal car in Sweden stands for 97% of its lifetime, and for every car there are 8 parking spaces and many miles of road. You can't call that effective. Ms. Skog said the reducing the number of cars on the road is a gender issue because their prevalence in Swedish cities results in men taking space away from women. Of course, cars are driven largely by men, so giving a lot of space to cars, we're giving a lot of space to men.
It's very frustrating.
At the expense of women.
It's how you know that thinking is inherently Marxist, isn't it? Because they keep looking at the outcome of everything, and then, almost like creationists do, they say, "Oh, this must be all by design." And not by any kind of natural evolution of, look, if you don't have affirmative action, if you just don't plan for a planned society, if you don't try and social engineer everything, you will just get these differences because people are naturally different. And that's why they have to crush the meritocracy and crush the life and the individualism out of people, because otherwise you can't have your utopia if people aren't infinitely malleable and you can't manipulate them and continuously control them and change them. And so it's precisely the same here. It's like, oh, 20, just look at the stats. More men here, more men park, more men drive cars, more men. Oh, hang on. What is it exactly? Are they couriers? Are they truck drivers? Are they vans? Are they taxi drivers? Whatever. What is it exactly? We need these industries.
That's the thing, man. Like, can you imagine every single tradesman, electrician, plumber, some kind of repairman that comes out to your house? He's got his own little van, his own little shuttle. And they're nearly always all men, aren't they? Of course, men drive more. Just fucking idiots. I mean, this might get sorted out anyway if we really do go to the. I've been listening to some of these. What are they called? Venture capitalists talking about the ride sharing economy and how if we're all going to go to electric cars and we're all going to be sharing each other's cars and you won't even own your own car anymore, there'll just be cars floating around, that there'll be much less cars, much less parking spaces and all the rest of it. So they might actually get their wish just if we get the ride sharing economy, as they call it. Yeah. Feminism in the field of transport policy isn't new in Sweden, which prides itself on having the world's first feminist government. Its website explaining this means that gender equality is central to the government's priorities. That's when you know your country is fucked. Remember the old Milton Friedman saying, a society that puts equality before freedom will get very little of either, but a society that puts freedom before equality will get a great deal of both. I mean, that's that people forgot that. People have completely forgot that. If you think after equality under the law, which is important, people get treated equally, that's it. You don't have to worry about equality. All this gender bullshit is just, it's warmed over Marxism. That's all it is.
Yeah, I talk to anybody in the early stages of the USSR, or anybody who has studied the Russian politics or anything, and they'll just tell you the same thing, which is all of this, and this is what I started to round up from 50%, particularly with the rise of Antifa. They just tell you the same thing. This is just a path to communism.
Yep.
And so at this point, I know these people have communist sympathies. I know they do. Oh, they're not on board with the gulags just yet, but give it another couple of political parties down the line. Give it a few more elections. Give it another generation. I mean, they're already starting to shame certain groups of the population, i.e. their own men. They're already looking for they have these affirmative action programs. All right, they're constantly going on about how we're all the same, and they're just be calling us comrades before too long. Like there's an actual university professor in Canada who is saying he wants to refer to all the students as comrades. I mean, it's just getting fucking blatant at this point.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that one. Refer to me as comrade. Jesus Christ. Yeah, here we get to the silly snowplow episode. In November, Stockholm's policy of gender-neutral snowplowing was called into question after the city was plunged into chaos, with hospitals reporting a fourfold increase in broken bones. Under the previous system, fresh snowfalls were first cleared from main roads by areas like construction sites before being removed from pavements. Because men are more likely to drive and women are more likely to travel on foot, more women slipped on the ice, which led to complaints that the system was sexist.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, remember that time that the Earth was destroyed by an asteroid and women were most affected?
Exactly. Police branded the results of the feminist policy deplorable and said that with ambulances unable to make their way along Stockholm's roads, it posed a danger to society. Jesus.
Well, I think they're just garbage humans. Whenever I see deplorable, I put those two words together now.
Fucking hell. Garbage humans. So we've got another article, Dave, but I wanted to ask you, because you were there. You were there at the Garbage Human episode. You've talked about this.
VidCon is like NAM now. You can't talk about it. You weren't there, man. You don't know.
Oh God. But how do you think? I mean, what is the take? Because obviously Anita's just a fucking child, an idiot. But how do you think it's played out in the media? Just the usual way, where the people that live online know she's an idiot, but in sort of mainstream media, she looks like a victim.
Three hit pieces have been written about me.
Right.
And one of them was prominent enough in Polygon, which is about, they talk about your Patreon.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. So now it's very obvious, if we didn't know it before. So the popular opinion obviously is on our side, because I still have faith in humanity. I know that's crazy, but most people are still sane. But it does seem that there's a very elite leftist media that is surrounding her, protecting her, insulating her. It's on her side. I don't know why. Maybe because she's a poster child for feminism and liberalism, but she gets a free pass from them. Obviously, she got a free pass from VidCon. They came down on her side. They've said in no uncertain terms, I won't be allowed back. So it's interesting. It's interesting how that happened. But the reason why
won't I let you come back? What did you do?
They said that people who use footage in the way that it was used for quote unquote trolling, or as they called it, prank videos, fucking sitting in the front row is pranking now, that they will not be allowed back. So I think it's fairly obvious that they're calling out me and Sargon in particular, even though there's other people there, they'd probably be able to get away with it. But I don't have any great desire to go back. The biggest thing for me was just meeting some of the other skeptics in that.
I can see the MarvelCon memes coming out shortly.
Oh yeah, that's the next thing, isn't it? But to be honest, this is the reason why we're organizing our own event, which is going to be in Phoenix next April, and because it's good to get together, and also I think it's just the next inevitable thing is that we need to start doing things in the real world, because we're not going to get our own. Well, I mean, it's possible. I mean, if you can get Francesca Ramsey talking to Andy Worski, if you can get Lacey Green to come out to completely change, and I've met Lacey, and she was very, very nice and very gracious. I think that anything's possible. I mean, maybe eventually in a few years down the line we'll have a panel at VidCon, but not right now. And I think we definitely need our own thing.
Well, who is it? The Vlog Brothers? They should be called the Cuck Brothers. Is that who they are? I mean, they were pathetic, weren't they? They were absolutely pathetic.
Green, wasn't it? Name Green, Hank Green.
Hank Green, yeah.
Hank Green and the other green guy, yeah. Well, the thing is, really? I only learned about this apparently that it was VidCon was never meant. This is what I've heard. VidCon began with 1,400 people. It's now about 30,000 attending. But it was never meant to be like specifically and exclusively about, hey, this is about YouTube and content creators, and this is how you're going to grow your channel. There is some of that stuff there, but on almost every single page of the lineup that you read, it's all the same stuff. Everything is women in this, LGBT in that, people of color in this, online spaces, content creators. It's all about identity politics. Everything's about identity politics. I've said it before. I had people come up to me specifically saying, it's quite moving when people tell you keep doing what you're doing, but they say stuff like, can't believe how bad California is getting. Thank you for continuing to point it out. And I said to them, yeah, I mean, it's amazing being here. I went to Phoenix afterwards, I stayed with Base Mama. And when I was in LA, there's very few American flags knocking around that area in Anaheim, but you'll see more LGBT flags. and then you go to Phoenix, and you see American flags everywhere. And it's just you could tell the culture in California. They're now allowing the communists to actually run in office, which was a law. They say we don't want these people there because the thing is, it's like, do you want an Islamist running for office? Because knowing what Islamists want, knowing what communists want. So that's where California is at this point. And it's not a surprise that VidCon is based there, and it's not a surprise that it operates the way it does.
Yeah. I saw Larry Elders trying to get behind this Republican candidate in California to beat Maxine Walker. She's a fucking complete idiot. You know who she is? She's like 70 years old. She's an African-American woman. She says some of the dumbest shit you've ever heard. Senator. Yeah. And so they've got this young, I think he's Hispanic running Republican in a Senate race, and they're trying to raise a lot of money. I hope they can get behind him because that would be interesting. The Republicans have done well this year holding all those sort of elections, by-elections in various places. It'd be good if they could make some inroads into California. Yeah,
well, before it's too late. I mean, if you think about it, 30 years ago, California was a red state. It was Republican. And think about what the Marxists have managed to do there in academia and everything else. What the left has managed to do that entire state to convert it so rightfully. It's gone completely. It's the other side.
You go look at those electoral maps from Reagan's era. You know, like a completely different map. He had California. I mean, he was a governor there in the 60s, wasn't he? And then he got the presidency in the 80s. I think maybe Bush the first lost California, or maybe it was under Clinton's first term. But yeah, they had that for years.
The reason why Antifa are most virulent there.
Yeah. All right. How long have we been going? Almost 2 hours. Maybe that's time to call it. We got any other news or things we want to get out?
Well, I'm procrastinating on this stream, but I better start doing the regressive news now. So I better run as well.
All right, man.
Did you guys do? You guys didn't do anything on the meme war?
I put up a video with about 3 or 4 of the memes in the beginning that people hadn't seen, the Fight Club one and a few others. But I just commented on it. I know Dave did a 6 or 7 minute video, and I just commented on it. My angle was, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of it, but I just said, this is what happens when you've got your dial permanently turned to 11. You know, you freak out about anything. You look like fucking idiots.
I spent like 3 days doing a send up of Matrix Reloaded, the fight scene.
Yeah,
with all the Agent Smiths coming in, man, the amount of CNN heads that I had to put in for all of those Agent Smiths. It took me 3 days to put the fucking thing together, and then only when I put it up, because there was no way I was ever going to get through with copyright, you know, using Warner Brothers film. So it got demonetized like within about 10 seconds, and I knew that was going to happen, but I wanted to make it anyway. And then all these people started coming on and going, man, you should enter this in the InfoWars 20 fucking grand thing. So
really?
Yeah, so I did it. So it closes tomorrow. It closes in another like 12 hours.
That was yours, man. I think Independent Man, you featured that, didn't you?
No, mine was from the original Matrix. You're talking about Reloaded, aren't you, Guess? Where there's like, you know, where there's 1,000 Agent Smiths that just come out of everywhere. That's the one.
He takes them all out with the pole and that. Yeah, so I've got Trump just fucking wiping out all of these CNN guys. And so I actually spent like an extra hour, because the stipulation is that you have to have the InfoWars thing sign has to be in it somewhere. So mucked around with some dropping that in, and man, I could. Paul Joseph Watson's judging it, man. If you're listening, just give me 20K Australian. I fucking need it, brother.
Good on you, man. Hope you get it. Hope you win it.
No, because the Bugs Bunny one. Have you seen it? The Bugs Bunny one's fucking brilliant.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. There's so many.
CNN is just done, man. Honestly, how does anybody take that shit seriously? And then apparently they took down their app because it was getting so many negative reviews. And what do you think is going to happen? It's exactly the same what happened with some videos recently. What was it? Was it Coke or the Pepsi ad or whatever it was? Oh no, MTV. They take the video down and they put it back up again because they think, oh, all those horrible people will get those negative comments out of their system. No, the negative comments come back. We know what you're doing. The internet never forgets, and the internet's a hell of a lot fucking smarter and more organized than you'll ever be. So all those negative reviews are coming back to the CNN app, no doubt.
We had
that here with the Red Pill film, and Channel 7 slagged her out, fucking all of this shit, and people just started bombarding the fucking Facebook page and all of that with negative comments. So they take the video down, wipe out all of the comments, and of course, what's the first thing people do? They start going leaving the same comments on every other video on their on their Facebook page.
It just goes to show you that episode and this CNN episode, they don't get the internet. They don't get it. I mean, so what did you do? What did you fucking idiots think? You're going to track down a guy that made a harmless meme and fucking threaten him? And you did not foresee that the fucking beauty of the shitlord community would open up and you would have thousands of people just making better memes, worse, more violent, whatever you fucking want. You idiots. How do you not get this by now? How do you not get it?
It's like Trump just fully played them, actually, in that in that regard. It's almost like he knew that they'd throw a fucking spastic over it. Again, if they hadn't said anything, let it fly under the radar. Now, you guys, have you seen the one where, I don't know if this was genuine, but where CNN apparently say, yeah, we've tracked down the kid, and they had this report of supposedly talking to his father, and then the father turns around and clocks him, and it turned out to be a YouTube video from 4 years ago.
Right. Nice.
Where they're reporting that we've tracked down the CNN meme guy. And it's from this obvious YouTube video that they've lifted from 4 years ago and saying that it applies to now. It's just like an absolute lie. How could you not know that you were going to just get caught out again telling the biggest fucking lie ever?
They don't learn. Did you see the one that's floating around at the moment? I don't know if CNN floated this one, but there's a picture of Trump and Melania at the airport meeting the Polish prime minister. Is it a president or prime minister? I'm not sure. And his wife. And Trump shakes the president's hand, the Polish prime minister's hand, and then he goes to shake the first lady of Poland's hand, and she moves past him and shakes Melania's hand, which is protocol, by the way. She didn't fucking deliberately blow him off. That's protocol, apparently. And they cut it there. Oh, look, Trump got duped. And guess what? Two seconds later, she shakes his hand.
She turns around and shakes his fucking hand. Yeah,
that's the same thing as the boy who asked him to sign his Trump hat, and Trump apparently, from one angle, BuzzFeed and others covered it, that he fucked it into the crowd, but he didn't. He actually threw it up in the air for the boy to catch right in front of him. He was just being playful, but they covered it from one angle, and when you see it from the other shot, you can see that he didn't do it.
Yeah. And then there's the other one where, as he was getting, I think, on the plane in Poland, there's a American military guy standing there. The wind's blowing and his hat blows off, and Trump goes and fetches the hat and puts it back on the guy's head. And see, Americans love that shit because that's something that, they love that patriotism that Obama wouldn't do. And then it blows off his head again, and Trump goes and fetches the hat again and puts it on his head. You haven't seen that because none of them want you to see it, because they know Americans, like, where Base Mama is from, they fucking love that shit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's going to become more and more of like a fucking folk hero to people because he's the anti-establishment character, and they know that obviously he is the political establishment now. He's the president in situ. But the thing is that people now are aware that there's this, whether it's deep state or whether it's the mainstream media that's aligned against him or whatever it is, wherever they pick the bad guy. They know that there's an establishment that's against them. There's something there that's rotten to the core. It's the moral busybodies, the authoritarians, and they're the one that's stifling everybody's fun. They're the one that wants more censorship. They're the ones against fucking jokes and memes. And he's been satirical, and he's like, fucking up and saying "kafefi" forever and taking the piss out of himself and everything else. And that's real to people. That's real. He's a real guy. He's a real person, and people see that, and then they see this really fucking, oh man, this media that's just so aligned against him and misrepresenting him everywhere. So I just think
conflicted outrage.
And I think someone says it's the deep state on the media today. Well, yeah, there's a degree of that as well.
Yeah, his use of Twitter gives him a real human touch. You know, they're all running around going, "Oh, yeah, or no, that's really immature of him to do that." But you know, but it's not immature when you guys do it. Oh, yeah, but he's a president. Well, you don't fucking want him to be president. You know?
I think that gets the goat the most is that he talks to his crowd via Twitter. He just circumvents the media. He doesn't bother with them. He cuts them out. That's what pisses him off the most, I think.
Yeah.
He just don't care what you think. I'm just going to talk straight to the, and when I do talk to you, I'm just going to call you fake news or something. It's hilarious.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I better run anyway. But Independent Man, congrats on 50,000 subs, man.
Yay.
Fucking hell.
That happened quick. That happened pretty quick.
It's it feels good, but I tell you what, I wish that fucking AdSense would turn around. But it looks like that's permanently fucked, doesn't it? Because I don't know about you guys, but June was no better than May.
Yeah, it was a little bit lower for me actually, and this month's pretty shit too. I don't think it's ever coming back. I think those days are over, unfortunately, and we're going to be relying on finding something else.
Mine is actually starting to come back a little bit. So for me, it's kind of starting a little bit on the up, and I've been saying to a few people that I actually think that scare is kind of over, and the advertisers know that YouTube is where the people are watching. They're going to come back. They're going to go, no, we want to sell our shit.
I think the advertisers, Independent Man, you and I spoke about this. I think the advertisers are back in large part. The problem is that the controls now that they're using are so fucking blunt, and they are just catching everything, and even stuff that's not really that controversial.
Yeah. If you make a video called racism is bad, you know, they just go, oh, there's the word racism. Get rid of it.
Yeah. And I can tell, I don't know about you, Dave, if you've looked at your tech videos that you've put out. I put out a video last week about Netflix. That got monetized more than any other video that week because I just, it's Netflix. So there was more ads running on it because I guess it passed through the filters of whatever. But I think you're right, Dave, is that advertisers are back, and by excluding us, they don't miss out on anything. Their videos, their ads just get shown on other things, and they can just cut out the people and whatever the category is, politics and news. They can just cut that out because why not? If you cut out the politics, someone just sent me PHP 125. What's that? Is that Filipino?
Church of Keg.
Yeah, what is that? Is it, what's
anyway,
that good for?
You've inspired me with that thing. I think I'm going to do a video called A Steaming Pile of Netflix. So,
yeah, but anyway, I think I fucking lost my train of thought. But yeah, they can just exclude politics and news as a category, and then you're done. You're completely done. And I've tried different things. So I had a couple of interviews recently, and I changed the category and put them in people and blogs because I'm interviewing one person one-on-one. Didn't make any difference.
Oh, that video I did criticizing CNN, the CNN blackmail thing, it was demonetized for a while, and then the monetization came back, but it was demonetized. And it's just like, well, that's typical, really, isn't it? You can't really criticize YouTube's preferred media partners.
Well, that's another thing. I think. Did you see the Philip DeFranco did a video maybe a few weeks back, maybe 3 weeks back, where he said he saw, I think it was some of the footage of the London attack on some major networks channel, and there was ads running on it. But of course, if you or I had put that up, there's no way that we would get that. So it's I said this in a video maybe more than a month ago. What I thought would happen, there would be a whitelist, not a blacklist. So the whitelist would be people who are approved. And so if you're a part of a major network, then you're approved automatically because we know you're adhering to FCC guidelines or whatever. But the rest of us, fuck you.
Yeah, it sounds about right, unfortunately.
All right, might call it a day there, fellas. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no worries, man.
Thanks everybody for dropping in.
Take it easy.
All right, thanks guys.
So, just you what I want, mate? All right, I might jump out as well because